On today's Locked On Senators, we'll weigh the pros and cons of another late season surge, the Sens coming off a fourth straight victory, beating the Chicago Blackhawks 2-0.
And I'm packing my things, heading out west to join the Ottawa Senators in Winnipeg for their game tomorrow. We'll have a full game day preview.
Not only that, but also the Belleville Senators, a must-win weekend. Why? We'll let you know and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1013 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan, soaking in the sunny Scottsdale heat alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Send Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Friday, March 29th, and Pilsy, another win. Is it good? Is it bad? That's the debate in Sensland right now. Where do you stand after another faux run gives the Senators 8 points in their last 4 games?
Ross, I'll spin zone it whatever way possible to make it into a positive. 4 straight wins for the Ottawa Senators after last night's 2-0 win over the Chicago Blackhawks. Anton Forsberg gets a shutout, and Ross, most importantly, the curse of the Chicago Blackhawks is over. It's over. It was 2,655 days since the Sens last beat the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks had an 11-0 run on the Sens. Not anymore. That's it. It's done. So that is especially for me, who I have my own personal vendetta when the Sens play the Chicago Blackhawks. This was a nice feeling. So to answer your question, Ross, I'm feeling good about this 4-game win streak.
And now we're looking to put a sword into another problem area for the Senators, and that's winning in the Western Conference. 0-13-1, but don't worry, everyone. Pilsy and I are bringing our 12-0-1 boots on the ground record to the last 2 games that the Sens will play against the Western Conference this season. Game day preview later on, though. But Pilsy, I watched the game in full this morning, and Tyler Kleven to me stood out as a guy who played exactly like we anticipated and hoped he would yesterday. There was that one shift in the second period in particular that I want to highlight where he rocks Lucas Reichel into the boards, doesn't miss a beat, pivots backwards, goes, gets it, gets into the offensive zone, and makes a smart, easy play to keep the play rolling. So for me, to see 10, 11 more games of Tyler Kleven is almost a necessity at this point to know more about what you have with him going into next season. I know we got a handful of games at the start of this year, but now after a run in Belleville, this is going to be an important time for Tyler Kleven. I get it from the standpoint that would you like to see him in Belleville helping this team in important games? But I think the Senators' future in Ottawa, more important to know what his game is like right now against NHLers.
Well, and Ross, for Dave Poulin and Steve Staios and co, at this point, you want to get an idea if Tyler Kleven can be a guy that can be on your NHL roster next year, because I got a feeling they're going to make some big changes to that D-core, and you have to know, okay, are we going to need to find a bottom pair left defenseman that can shut things down and play a physical game, or is Tyler Kleven ready to elevate and take that role for himself? So although obviously I really want Belleville to have their best lineup possible this weekend, we'll get into that later on in the show, but I do tend to agree with you on this one. I think it's time to give Tyler Kleven a proper evaluation and just keep him up the rest of the year if Thomas Chabot is not healthy enough to play.
Tyler Cleveland played 14 minutes and 7 seconds, which is more than any of the 5 previous games he played earlier this year, beating his previous high by 20 seconds. But still, able to get back with a regular shift, was mostly paired with Eric Brandstrom in that game against Chicago. And when the two of them were on the ice at 5-on-5, 57% Corsi, 52% on the expected goals total. So hoping to see more of that. Even got one shift with Jacob Chikrin as well. So let's look forward, and hey, maybe as you're heading out to Winnipeg, funny enough, that was the first time this season it feels like, because JBD, I don't know if he was in those games. Was he? Was this the first? No, Shane Pinto wasn't. He was suspended. So there you have it. This is the first time this season that all 4 #Nodak Sens were in the same lineup at the same time. And maybe they'll get a repeat in the closest barn to the Ralph, where we will be taking a tour, maybe vlog, maybe have some fun with that on Monday as we get to experience the Midwest. But kind of cool. We had a few messages on Twitter at Sen Central, people saying, hey, is this the first time that all 4 of them have been in a game together? Of course, our guy Brad Schlossman of the Grand Forks Herald had already written about it. I think it was last year, if not the end of 2 seasons ago, right after Cleven signed that. So it would have been last season, right?
I think it was last year.
Yeah, end of last season when Cleven signed all 4 of them up. But Pillsy, what was another takeaway from you from that game? Jake Sanderson, while we're on the Nodak Sens, like, skating got him out of so much trouble in last night's game. He was. We had a tweet from one of our friends of the show, Don, in Barhaven. He goes, I almost broke my neck trying to watch him on TV, trying to like follow the puck. He was skating at his absolute best yesterday.
Yep, Jake Sanderson had a great game. We highlighted that in the postcast, and our friend Mark Mathot was highlighting it on the broadcast as well. But Ross, we got to give the shine to the 3 players that in the last couple of games have been so consistent and have elevated their game, the entire 4th line. I'm talking Parker Kelly, Mark Kastelik, Boris Kachuk. Those guys have been on fire recently. All of them playing above 10 minutes a game for the last 2 games, which is rare to see from Jacques Martin and the 4th line, how that he's deployed them this season. And they've been creating offense. They've been playing a physical game. Parker Kelly scores a goal last game and takes a puck to the face, busting his nose up. So I just think that when the 4th line is able to elevate that game, it kind of it has an effect on the rest of the lineup. Like, all right, if these guys are doing this, we all got to up our game a little bit here. And I just want to give a big shout out to that 4th line.
Well, it seemed like it wasn't the 4th line, though, because the line of Ridley Gregg, Mathieu Joseph, and Dominic Kubalik didn't play a whole lot in the second half of that game.
Yeah, well, I think they ended up switching Crooker and Joseph sometime, because we were talking about it on the postcast. Crooker, Gregg, and Kubalik ended up sitting on the bench for the second half of the 3rd period. So clearly Jacques Martin was thinking other guys had it going while those guys did not.
Back to the bigger picture, and yeah, shout out to Anton Forsberg. Didn't have to be too busy. We'll get into whether or not he should start again on Saturday. But I think that when you're looking at this game, you have to kind of zoom out. And even though the Ottawa Senators have won 4 games in a row, they're still 7th in the draft lottery rankings. Mike Johnson made a good point on the broadcast last night as well, that like you're arguing over 1% of chance getting a 1st overall, 2nd overall pick. The lottery is still very heavily weighted to the bottom 3. I believe it's 18, 13, and 11%. And the Sens are not getting one of those 3 picks. Those are as locked in as possible.
Yeah, so Ross, it's 18.5, 13.5, 11.5.
Okay, big half a percentage I was off there. Credit to me. A big lottery guy, as we have been over the course of the last number of years. But look, Craig Button did his most recent draft ranking, so I've updated ours, and it really is such a wide open field from 2 to 12.
Yeah.
From 2 to 12, the average draft ranking with our 7 scouts all the way up to 11. 2 to 11 are separated by 5. It goes 4.4 on average ranking to 9.4. It's as tight as possible. And then 12th is Carter Yakemchuk, big right shot defenseman that I think under the right circumstances, Sens fans would be happy to have.
Definitely.
So that's how I'm spin zoning this the rest of the year. They're going to get a solid player. and another late season surge is actually good.
Oh,
Yeah, winning
easy, Ross. I want to see how you spin this, because I talked about on the postcast last night. We cannot fall into the trap that this late season push is going to solve everything or means anything going towards next season. So please have your say here.
I think it's more just for the top end guys who have still been the guys contributing the most. But for me, the key is getting good veterans who can still play in everyday roles, not Travis Hamonics, guys who can actually contribute day in, day out. You look at the best teams in the league, they all have them. Ottawa has to find those guys no matter what this summer. And I don't think a late season push is going to change how management views this team, but it'll certainly change how the players feel about the team. And I think that in itself is important. Not only that, but Pilsy, selfishly, 11 games left. We're going to 3 of them. So, yeah. I mean, we're cheering for 3 wins. I don't go to games cheering for losses.
No, God, no.
So there's another spin zone. And third, am I on my third? Because I'm just ripping through these points of why the Sens should be winning.
We'll say you're on your third. Yep, third.
The key players not only are going to be contributing and feeling better about themselves in the offseason, but I think the coaching staff deserves, based on what they received in the management, I think it's important for everyone to just feel good about a few wins. I know that a lot of the games are on the road. So look, if you're going to stink on the road. If you're going to lose on the road. Last night, big win. Even though too many Hawks fans there, way too many Hawks fans. You know, they only have 3 more home games left this season.
Wow. Holy, that's weird. But Ross, I don't know if it's so much Hawks fans or Connor Bedard fans. I bet if you asked any of those Hawk fans or checked their jerseys, it'd be a lot of 98s.
Yeah, that's fair. Saw probably a couple Calvin DeHaan jerseys there from his time in Chicago.
Well, good Zaitsev jerseys.
Good carp guy. Oh, that's perfect. The last thing I want to say on last night's game is no video tribute for Nikita Zaitsev.
Sad.
Say what you want about Nikita. Maybe they couldn't find enough. Well, you could have just given him the old welcome back.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they did anything. But Ross, Nikita Zaitsev did help the Sens out in this game as Kelly shot. Mrazek was right there with his glove, and Nikita's like, no, I'm going to catch this one. And it knocks off his glove and then goes past Mrazek's glove for the second goal. So thanks, Nikita.
Thanks, Z. Appreciate that, man. He was a good soldier. I'm sure it wasn't easy for him. I couldn't believe when I looked it up too, Pilsy. All-time Sens games played, 203 games with the Ottawa Senators. That's not an indictment on Nikita Zaitsev. That's an indictment on the people who made the decisions that he should be in the lineup that many times.
Well, Ross, I'm not even that upset about how much he was in the lineup. I'm upset about how many minutes he played those games he was in the lineup. Like, if he was anchored on that bottom pair, there was times, Ross, and we can go back and find these, that you and I were stoked about Nikita Zaitsev. Like, when he was put...
There's 1 year. One of the 3 years he played in Ottawa, he was decent.
But that's, if he was put in that position the whole time, I actually think he might have been good. The issue was he was on the top pair with Thomas Chabot for the majority of his career while he was in Ottawa, and that just was not a spot he was meant to be.
Fair enough. So happy trails, Nikita Zaitsev. On the other side, weekend preview, the Winnipeg Jets are basically doing the opposite of Ottawa's season. They started out red hot, and they haven't won a game in what feels like forever. Is this a thing we should be worried about, though? Because when you look at kind of the history here, Ottawa's won a few, Winnipeg's lost a few. You look where they are in the standings. The Sens due for a loss on Saturday night. We'll look at that in a preview of potentially a Halliday in action. Stephen Halliday expected to make his Belleville Sens debut. We'll let you know who we think he should be skating next to on a line and just what the stakes are between Belleville and Laval this weekend. That's all coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Ross and I are going on a road trip driving from Winnipeg to Minnesota. So Ross, make sure the Honda Civic's all ready to go. And if it's not, you can find your parts at eBay Motors. eBay Motors' passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, and it's what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Ross, maybe we'll put a supercharger on the Civic, get to Nodak and Minnesota a little bit quicker here. But that's if you're into speed, or maybe you're into power, or maybe you're into style. Whether you're into any of those three or all three of them, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Check it out today, guys. eBay Motors.
eBay Motors could even turn my Civic into a CRV. Today's episode is also brought to you by Farm to Fork Delivery. Go check out farmtoforkdelivery.ca. Local Ottawa company. Derek's an absolute beauty. Took this thing from scratch and made sure it was his own. And what does Derek want? Derek wants to provide you with the easiest way to have premium meat and seafood. So not only is it a delicious product, and you can go look at their average 5-star review on Google, but they also have convenient delivery that brings it right to your door. But let's talk about the products first, because at Farm to Fork Delivery, it's all natural, antibiotic and hormone free, and ethically raised. So why Farm to Fork? Well, the meats are flash frozen after being hand cut at the butcher's table. That makes for meat that is much fresher than what you see at the grocery store. You know, when you're picking up a steak and there's like all the juice just like fallen to the side? No, not at Farm to Fork Delivery, because they make sure everything is individually vacuum packed. So that also means you fill the freezer, you only take out what you need. They've got the ribeyes. You know I love good ribeyes, and I also love the bundles at Farm to Fork. The barbecue bundle, 51 items, and you can use our promo code LOSP10 for 10% off. So go check out all their food today. Farm2forkdelivery.ca. That's the number 2. Farm2forkdelivery.ca, and taste the Farm to Fork difference. Use that promo code LOSP10. Support local, eat great, and trust me, you will never go back to grocery store meats. Go visit our friends at Farm to Fork, farmtoforkdelivery.ca. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right, Pillsy. So the Ottawa Senators, winners of 4 straight games. What does that do for the standings? It keeps them just barely ahead of Montreal. Montreal's won 3 in a row. Ottawa's won 4 straight. Sens and Habs tied at 68 points. Buffalo is ahead of them, 5 points ahead. The Sens do have a game in hand. So that's what I'm saying. It's not the end of the world to win a few more games. Ottawa has moved up 1 spot in the standings by winning 4 straight games. However, there's a Canadian team out west. The Calgary Flames have lost 5 in a row, lost 8 of 10, and they're only 3 points ahead of the Ottawa Senators. Same amount of games played, both teams with 9 games remaining. So that to say, Pillsy, I'm a little precautious of not passing by the Calgary Flames. Precautious. I don't know if that's a word in this situation.
Precautious. Word of the day?
Word of the day, precaution. A measure being taken beforehand to prevent harm or secure goods. I don't think that applies here.
Good try. Usually you're pretty good at these, so every once in a while you're going to swing and miss at them.
It went up in flames. But let's talk about another Canadian team, the Winnipeg Jets, who felt like they were in the driver's seat in the toughest division to win in hockey, the Central. But of late, Colorado, Dallas, they keep shooting up, and Winnipeg cannot seem to get any sort of goal-scoring consistency, and they are now in 3rd place, 4 points back of Colorado. And Dallas, I mean, winners of 6 in a row, they've just taken the reins in that division.
No one's catching Dallas, Ross.
You think that they've pretty much locked up that? I mean, they're 3 points ahead of Colorado.
Yeah, I just think they've got this.
Yeah, I saw them live on Sunday in Arizona, and they are a very good team. Now, there is one more head-to-head meeting between Dallas and Colorado, so that could be a big game on April 7th. Right now, I think it's just about looking ahead for the Winnipeg Jets and not worrying, because no matter where you finish in the Western Conference, you're going to play a really good team. Probably the winner of the conference gets the easier way out with LA. But I mean, the way Nashville's playing, Nashville's only 4 points back of Winnipeg now in the Central Division. They just suffered their first loss in regulation in 16, 17 games?
Yeah, it's insane the run they've been on here
Against Arizona. So if you're on tank watch still, that's a nice move. Get Arizona ahead of the Ottawa Senators if they can do that. However, with the Jets this weekend, look, 0-13-1 outside of the Eastern time zone. It is a remarkably pathetic stat. They cannot finish the season 0-15. They can't finish with a 0 in 16 games in the win column. They just can't do it. So why not now? Why not us, Pilsy, in Winnipeg? It's a 6 o'clock start local time. So it's a 7 o'clock Eastern start. Maybe that'll help, Pilsy.
True.
Maybe that'll help. It's a 7 o'clock Saturday night. Their bodies should be used to this grind. And I just want to see a win, because last year the Ottawa Senators got absolutely run out of the building in Winnipeg. I believe it was a 5-1 loss, but I didn't have my sidekick with me. So I'm hoping that, Pilsy, you and I can bring a little luck to this. But I am worried with how poorly the Winnipeg Jets have been playing, because they're coming off. They dominated the Vegas Golden Knights last night. It was tied 1-1 late in the third period, and then they gave up 2 empty netters after the eventual game winner as well, right? So Winnipeg is 0-4-1 in their last 5 games, and they've only scored 8 goals in their last 5 games, Pilsy.
Yeah, the pissed off Jets will be hosting the Ottawa Senators here. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see like a good team that's struggling up against a bad team that's having success here. Like what one of those has to give here, you would think, but unless the Ottawa Senators just come into Winnipeg and keep things rolling here. But I am worried about this Jets team, Ross, because we heard Ray Ferraro say it on a broadcast a little while ago, and that's rung true to me. If you play a structured game without making too many mistakes up against the Sens, you're probably going to be able to manipulate them and find ways to score. And this Jets team, if you're looking at the lines right now on YouTube, Ross is going to go through them in a second. They've got depth from top to bottom in all positions. Like Nemestikov being on their 4th line is incredible for this team. So I think this is going to be a tough task for the Sens.
Shout out to hashtag Sens Abroad legend Vladislav Nemesnikov. He is at 700 NHL games played. Pretty impressive for a guy who I thought deserved better in Ottawa. Was leading the team in shorthanded goals that year. He was maybe even leading the league. He was awesome. I think he had 4 or 5. But the Winnipeg Jets, they're deep, and they don't even have one of their best players right now. Gabe Vilardi still out of the lineup with a spleen issue. They're hoping to have him back before playoffs. He's been awesome so far this season. But another guy who came over in that trade is taking his spot on the top line, the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade that is. Here's how we expect the Winnipeg Jets to line up in Saturday night's game. Mark Scheifele at center between Kyle Connor and Alex Iafallo. Sean Monahan between Nikolai Ehlers and Tyler Toffoli. Adam Lowry is centering Nino Niederreiter and Mason Appleton. And then David Gustafsson between Morgan Barron and Vlad Nemesnikov. On the back end, Josh Morrissey with Dylan DeMello. Brendan Dillon with Neil Pionk. Logan Stanley with Dylan Sandberg, but don't be surprised if Stanley comes out at the expense of Nate Schmidt drawing in. We also expect Laurent Brossoit to get the start. Hellebuck's been on quite the run right now, but in terms of games played, so don't be surprised if they go with Brossoit, who's been the best backup in the National Hockey League so far this season. One interesting note, Cole Perfetti not hurt. He was a healthy scratch again against Vegas. He's been kind of in and out of the lineup. Head coach Rick Bowness, Sens inaugural coach Rick Bowness, made it very clear they're trying to like shepherd him through this, but he's just been struggling.
And Ross, who do you take out of the lineup to put him in?
Yeah, I think a lot of Jets fans would probably just look at David Gustafsson as an easy guy that you could kind of rotate
but
in
do you
and
want
out.
Perfetti on your 4th line?
Probably not. They had him there for a little bit, but yeah, it kind of throws everything for a loop. Like Alex Iafallo earlier this season played a bit on that line. Like his spot before they acquired Toffoli, like that's where Perfetti was playing, wing on the second line, and it was mostly him and Gabe Vilardi that would share center duties, and then they would have, Scheifele and Connor and Jets fans don't always love this. They're just tied at the hip. They just always play together. And there's a lot of goals for and a lot of goals against when those two are on the ice together. So it's a high event line, and that's why I think that Rick Bowness thinks it's important to put Alex Iafallo there as kind of the defensive conscious on that line. But as a lookout player for me, Pilsy, I've got to go up front, and I'm going to go with Mark Scheifele. I just think that for him, he's the heartbeat of this team. He took a lot of beatings in the media over the course of the last half decade, but he's been awesome so far this season. And I think for him to lead this team out of the rut, he's going to have to pick it up himself, because he's only got 2 assists, no goals in his last 5 games. And you can even stretch that. I mean, the team has 8 goals in the last 5 games. He had a hat trick, Pilsy, in one game, a win at Madison Square Garden. That's the only game he's scored in the last 10. So he does not have a goal in 9 of his last 10 games. And I'm expecting his best against Ottawa. Look, he'll probably be matched up against Tim Stützle because they'll get last change, although they might want Adam Lowry on there. But I think that if they're going to go kind of power on power, Mark Scheifele could be a guy that sees a lot of the Ottawa's top 6. And I think that he probably wins that battle in the offensive zone, but you hope Timmy can answer with a couple of his own. I've been begging for 2-goal Timmy for a little while, so hopefully we get it. In his career against Ottawa, 33 points in 29 games, so over a point per game guy.
Solid. I like that pick. My lookout player is going to be number 27, Nikolai Ehlers. One of my favorite players to watch. He's just so dynamic when he's on his game. However, Ross, we were talking before we started recording here, for how good the Winnipeg Jets are, it's insane how poor their special teams are. Their power play is 22nd in the league, 17.9%, only a 0.5% better than the Ottawa Senators, to put it into perspective. And then their penalty kill is also not doing so great, 24th in the league at 76.6%. So it's crazy that they have this much talent and good goaltending, and their power play and special team, penalty killing rather, is still struggling. So I'm looking at Nikolai Ehlers here, a guy with 0 power play goals. None. No power play goals for Nikolai Ehlers seems insane to me.
Couldn't be a star on our team.
Nope, Timmy. He's got 1. So you love to see that. But Nikolai Ehlers, like last season, he only played 45 games. He only had 12 goals. 3 of those goals were on the power play. So a quarter of his goals, math guy, were on the power play last year, and he has none this year while having 21 goals. So it's kind of crazy that that's the case up against the Ottawa Senators. Similar to Mark Scheifele, Ross, in 20 games for Ehlers, he has 22 points, 10 goals, 12 assists, and he's shooting at a 15% clip. And he has 2 power play goals up against the Sens. So I don't know. I'm a little nervous. As we know, the Ottawa Senators seem to always have guys come in and break streaks or get big milestone goals. So I'm going to be looking out for 27 Nikolai Ehlers, especially on that second power play unit.
And those who were in attendance or watched the game in January will remember that Nikolai Ehlers scored the overtime winner and gave the Jets a 2-1 win against Ottawa on January 20th. Since then, Pilsy, the Jets are 14-2. Like, they are a 500 team since the middle of January. It has been a far cry from a team that went 17 straight games with at least a point in December. They went 30 games, I believe, 34, 35 games straight without allowing more than 3 goals in a game. And now they're really just trying to gear up for takeoff before the playoffs come. Final note on the Winnipeg Jets. We're going long this, but it's an exciting time being boots on the ground this weekend. The Winnipeg Jets D pair of Josh Morrissey and hashtag Sens Abroad Dylan DeMello have played the second most minutes together at 5-on-5 of any D pair in the National Hockey League this season. 1,118 minutes together so far this season. To put that in perspective, the Senators' top D pair of Sanderson and Zub have played 691 minutes together, almost double Morrissey and DeMello out there. And then the second pair of Brendan Dillon and Neil Pionk have played almost 900 minutes, so 300 more than the Sens' top pair. So,
and that's crazy because like Sanderson and Zub, like that seems like a line, that a pair that's been stapled all year.
Yeah, they played 56 games with at least a minute together. So Yeah, impressive stuff. Let's look at the Sens lines next, and Belleville has an enormous weekend. What can we expect from them against the Laval Rocket? That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at the Glebe Central Pub. The Glebe Central Pub is the neighborhood pub in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street. You guys know we love the Glebe Central Pub. They love Sens fans so much that they're finding ways to get more Sens fans to the game with the Sens shuttle. Everyone already knows the legendary Sue, the bus driver. She'll get you there on time. Go to the pub, Ross, an hour and a half before the game? She leaves.
Go early. Go early.
Go early,
have a bite,
get dinner, have a couple drinks. You don't need to worry about driving back, so have a good time. Sue will take you to the game. If traffic is busy, she knows all the side routes. She'll get you there on time. Have fun at the game. Have a couple more pops. Get back to the parking lot after the game, and Sue will bring you right back to the Glebe Central Pub, all for a great price of $17 for a round trip. You can't beat that, and you get to vibe with other Sens fans on the bus. And speaking of vibing, Ross, in this economy, how great is the price of vibes at the GCP?
The vibes are free at the GCP.
The vibes are free at the GCP. We've had so many people on Twitter, in the chat, in the postcast say, hey, because of you guys, I went to the Glebe Central Pub. I did the Sens shuttle, and it did not disappoint. So if you haven't done it yet, it's an experience. Ross and I do it pretty much every time we're in town, so we love doing it, and you'll love it too. So check them out, the Glebe Central Pub at 779 Bank Street, and let them know the Locked On Senators podcast sent you.
All right, Billsy, it's game day for the Belleville Senators taking on the Laval Rocket. It is going to be a humongous weekend series. We'll discuss that in just a few minutes. We'll wrap up our Sens game day weekend /preview. But first, I want to allow everyone the chance to know that AHL TV is having a free preview of tonight's game. So our guy David Foote, you can listen in to him on the call for the Laval Rocket hosting the Belleville Sens. That barn, it's like NHL level loudness. It's an awesome atmosphere to watch a game in Laval. Yeah. So go check it out on AHL TV.
You had one of your most viral tweets ever when we went to the home opener in Laval up against the Sens, 2 years ago?
Well, it was right after COVID, so everyone was still kind of like shocked at big crowds, and this was an enormous crowd, and they were all waving the towels. It looked like a Sens playoff game with the woohoo towels.
You just did a pan of the arena, and Sportsnet picked it up. It got a lot of play, and I remember you and I got there, and we walked in, and we're like, this is nuts. Like, this is like an NHL atmosphere here. Everything was top notch there. So the Belleville Senators rather are going to have to be top notch up against Laval if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Since we're on the prospect talk, and again, we will get to a more of a game review. We'll let you know who we expect Stephen Halliday to be playing with. I want to give a shout out to a guest of the show, Hoyt Stanley, Senators' 4th round. He was the first guy they drafted, right? Yeah, the Senators' first selection.
Yep.
In the 2023 NHL draft, Hoyt Stanley and the Cornell Big Red. I love that he plays for Big Red. It's such a perfect spot for Hoyt Stanley.
I thought they were the Bears.
Are they? I thought they were the Big Red. Cornell.
I'm pretty sure their logo is a big cuddly bear.
It is a big bear, but they are called Cornell Big Red.
Okay, so we're both right.
The Big Red Bears, I guess you could say. But okay. So they got the win in their first round action in the NCAA tournament. He was +1 in that game. Now it's a tough test. Tomorrow afternoon, they're going to take on Denver. Denver coming off a 2 overtime win against the only other Sens prospects that are in the tournament, Tyson Dick and Nicholas Van Tassel. So, Hoyt, Sens prospects, morale, prestige, it's all up to you, buddy. And the hashtag #NoDaxSens, even though there's no Sens prospect, they're taking on Michigan tonight. All right, Billsy, you want to stick with the prospect talk? You want to go with Belleville, wrap up the show with the Senators? It's a day off for Ottawa. They're traveling to Winnipeg. They'll skate tomorrow morning at 11:30.
Yeah, let's stick on Belleville while we're here. So another guest of the show, friend of the show, Stephen Halliday, is
Beauty.
expected to make his AHL debut tonight, which is massive for this Belleville to get some reinforcements. We already talked about it. Crooker up in the NHL, Clevin up in the NHL. So this is a team that could use a bit of a boost, a morale boost also. And I think Stephen Halliday I think he's going to be able to step into AHL hockey pretty seamlessly. He's got the size, he's got the hockey IQ. I think the one thing we'll see is how his skating keeps up with some of these guys. But I'm excited for Stephen Halliday to be in the AHL.
And I think that you just put him in a top 6 role right away. Like, you're not trying to dip his toe in. Like, you're like, hey, sink or swim. Because the thing with Halliday is he was an overager when the Sens drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's coming in. I believe he's the same age. No, 1 year old, 1 year younger than Igor. Like, he's like 22, I believe. So
I think he is 22. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, like, it's not going to be overwhelming for him, I don't think, just being in a pro environment. I know 2 years at college is, for a lot of players, they're still coming out just at the end of being a teenager. But I think Stephen Halliday, who we think could be on a line with Wyatt Bongiovanni, who I think would bring a speed element to that line. But I would put him right with Igor Sokolov. Like, why not have you? He's a disher, right? Why not put him with your shooter in Igor Sokolov? I could also see if they wanted to kind of insulate him with a veteran. I don't know, maybe a Garrett Pilon or not Yuri Smejkal. I know he's not a vet at the AHL level, but obviously he has pro experience, vet. But I would just put him with Igor. I think those two could make some magic together. We do know that Halliday will wear number 17, which means Zach McEwen ain't playing in the AHL anymore this season. He was injured up in Ottawa, so I guess his number's up for grabs down there. But yeah, you mentioned it as well, with no Clevin or Crookshank, the Belleville Sens are going to be in tight, and we expect Levi Marilainen to start in goal. I don't even think Mads is going to dress in tonight's game, which I find a little kind of concerning. I don't know if it's injury related or what. Maybe it's like, hey, you're starting on Saturday, so we don't even want the possibility of you going in. That'll be curious to see play out over the weekend. But some people are like, hey, guys, why is it such a big game? You guys didn't really break down why this is such a big game. Well, last weekend, Laval took 4 points from Belleville. I know Belleville got 1 in the overtime loss, but not enough. Because as they wake up here Friday morning, the Belleville Sens are out of a playoff spot. 2 points out. But they do have 2 games in hand on the Laval Rocket. So these are critical games with 10 remaining for Belleville, 8 remaining for Laval. So after this weekend, Laval's going to have 6 games left. You can really take a stance. And I know it's on the road, but Belleville, Laval just came into your barn and beat you twice. Why not go return the favor? Humongous weekend. And look, Laval, they're all happy, and Habs fans are going to be watching the game too, because David Reinbacher, 5th overall pick, is in the lineup again.
Yep.
But he's no Stephen Halliday. So Sens fans got to be watching on AHL TV tonight. I know I'm going to be firing it up on the plane, and I'm really excited to see what Stephen Halliday can do playing alongside Igor Sokolov. I just love that combo. I'm willing it into existence, Billsy.
A disher and a shooter. That's a match made in heaven. Just for completeness sake, Ross, Stephen Halliday is 21. He turns 22 on Canada Day.
Oh, July 2nd.
July 2nd, our good friend the Leames Martian birthday.
All right, Pillsy. Any final thoughts on today's show? I guess your final thought should be that the Senators lineup and a locked-on player for Saturday.
Man, you know me too well, Ross. Those are my final thoughts. If you want to pull up the lineup here, these are 2 very different teams as we take a look at how this lineup matches up against the Ottawa Senators or the Winnipeg Jets. For my locked-on player, Ross, I'm trying
to choose from.
You know what? I'm going to go with number 71, Ridley Gregg. We talked about how he was stapled to the bench for the second half of the third period, and he has kind of been in a bit of a lost spot recently. I don't know how you feel about that, Ross, but it just seems like he hasn't been put in a position where he's able to thrive. Unfortunately, we're going to keep taking side jabs at Kubalik here. He's on his way out. He hasn't done anything good for the Sens this year. It's been a complete disaster. So having Ridley Gregg center with Kubalik as one of his wingers. I think that kind of anchors him down. Now, Joseph, I feel
okay.
like
he started hot.
He bottomed out a little bit here at the second half, but then again, like you're putting him with a young centerman and then an anchor of a winger also. So it doesn't help his situation either. I feel like they've kind of just let that third line die out like they have for a lot of the season here. So that's tough, but I want to see Ridley Gregg get back into form here. And hey, he spent a lot of time in Manitoba, captain of the Brandon Wheat Kings. So maybe a little Manitoba magic for Ridley Gregg will get things cooking again.
I love that. And don't tell Leaf fans this, but since the empty net slap shot, he scored the very next game. Since then, 2 goals, 1 assist, -7 in 23 games. But don't tell the Leaf fan in your life, because I don't think they're going to figure that one out on their own. Not too bright over there in Leafland. Shout out to Locked On Leafs, our guys. We love those guys. However, Pilsy, the offense has dried up for Ridley Gregg. But I keep saying it. We talk about this with other young players. For me, this is a learn the ebbs and flows year for Ridley. Next year is when I expect more consistency in his game. He's also 21. We're talking about Stephen Halliday making his debut in the AHL. Oh, he's 21. Well, Ridley Gregg's 21 and turns 22 later, younger than Stephen Halliday. So that's where it's like, okay, let's give this guy a bit of rope. But like you said, it would be nice to see him finish off the year strong. My locked on player, I want to go with Tyler Clevin. We expect his parents to make the drive up from North Dakota. So I think that's a fun one. I got to spend a little time with his folks when he was here with Belleville in January. Just a great family. I hope we get to see Crooker in the lineup. I love, obviously, what we've seen from him as a friend of the show. But my locked on player is Brady Tkachuk, because we know he also has ties to Winnipeg. His whole mom's side of the family's from Winnipeg. His uncle, his agent, is Winnipeg guy as well. And his grandpa's always at the games, Pilsy, so he doesn't want to let grandpa down either. I got to see him a couple of years ago in there, and he always comes to play in Winnipeg. I know last year was tough, but 2 years ago, he played really well. We're going to have him as an anytime goal scorer. He's got 8 goals in 19 games against Winnipeg, but I do think a lot of those came on the road as well. And maybe if we take out the COVID season as well, because no fans at those games, but I'm going to go with Brady Tkachuk as my locked on player. And let's let the captain lead the team to 5 straight wins. 5 wins, by the way, is their longest win streak this season. So
easily. Yeah, it's got to be.
You and I are 12-0-1 with boots on the ground. 12-0-1, Pilsy, since 2017. We're going back to 2017. It was a game at the end of the season, right before playoffs, where they beat the New York Rangers. Yep. 5-2, I think, was the score, if I'm not mistaken. We walk into the arena, and as we do, it's a 2-on-1 developing for Ottawa. And then in the defensive zone, Mark Borowiecki says, no, I need to punch this guy's face in. So from that moment on, we are 12-0-1. The only blemish, the Chris Neil retirement game where Patrick Kane tied it. Patrick Kane won it, and then he immediately left to the New York Rangers. So that was pretty rude of him overall, but we're ready. We're ready to bring it because we've won games since then. We were at opening weekend where Ottawa got 2 straight wins. We've both seen losses individually since then. I was at the Toronto game early December. You were at the game that deteriorated into a debacle a little while ago.
Against the Carolina Hurricanes.
The Hurricanes, yeah. But I have a good feeling about Saturday night. And if you're a Citizen, you're heading to the game. We're looking to go probably Hargraves Market before the game, but let us know on Twitter at Sens Central. Shoot us a message, tag us, let us know. Would love to have a little Sens Army meet up there. We're going to do the same thing in Minnesota. And people are asking, you got your tickets yet? Where are you sitting for the Winnipeg Jets Ottawa Senators game? Well, Pilsy, thanks to the Game Time app, it's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
We actually have not bought tickets. So if anyone has a suite they want to bring us, we can be convinced. Let us know. However, I'll be checking out the Game Time app for last-minute tickets at the lowest prices. Promo code locked on. But Pilsy, we're going to have a great weekend. Safe travels to you, sir. And, safe travels to me, too, because I'm flying back from Scottsdale tonight. And we'll see you at Hargraves Market around 4:30, and it's a 6 o'clock local time start. And if you're a Sens fan, you can't make it to the whatever, we'll see you at the game. Let us know. We'll tweet out where we're at. We'll try to do some good job of making sure that we provide some content over the next couple days. Our first road trip to a game together, Pilsy. It'll be like the good old days of driving down the 401 to Belleville. So we'll have a good time. We're looking forward to it and hope to see a lot of Sens fans out supporting this team with a late season push once again. You like it? You hate it? Let us know in the comments. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.